You know what you are going to get from a Ratchet & Clank game, just like you would from a new Grand Theft Auto. The studios behind these long-running series are world-class, and that's thanks in part to the tried and tested formulae that run through their franchises. The chance of a new game in the series being utter rubbish is infinitesimally small, so of course Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is brilliant. The story begins sometime after the end of 2016's Ratchet & Clank, a game which rebooted the franchise using the animated movie as a new origin story. During a parade to celebrate these two heroes, Dr. Nefarious appears once more brandishing the Dimensionator, a big gun that can rip holes through universes, sending Ratchet, Clank and himself tumbling through to a new dimension. It just so happens that this is one where Nefarious is now Emperor, while our intrepid duo find themselves separated from one another. Rather conveniently for Clank, he finds himself teaming up with Rivet, a female Lombax who appears to be Ratchet's alt-universe counterpart, and our divided heroes must then start to find each other and work together to find the Dimensionator, repair the universes, and maybe bump into some slightly familiar alt-universe characters along the way. In the background of this video, we have got some B-roll of the game provided to us by Sony. There's a mixture of the 4K 30fps best quality Fidelity mode, and that's the default for this game, but there's also more modes available after you update to the day one patch. There's the Performance RT mode, which we can also show, which sacrifices the base resolution and effects quality, but still keeps ray tracing going, and upscales to 4K and 60fps. We're not going to delve too much into the technical side of things, but suffice to say that it's great to have the options, much like you have in Insomniac's PS5 Spider-Man games. The gameplay of Rift Apart is going to be familiar for pretty much any Ratchet & Clank player, and it's very similar to the 2016 game, with the two Lombaxes, or should that be Lombaxi, maybe Lombacies? Well, whatever they are, they're scampering around the worlds and battling enemies with a range of wild weaponry that blends new with old. Mr. Fungus spawns large mushroom creatures which bounce around and attack enemies for you, while the Toxiary Sprinkler is a garden sprinkler that immobilizes enemies by covering them with vegetation. To get around the world, there's wall running, slingshots, bounce pads, gliding, racing and flying, and new to the series is the ability to focus on rifts that scatter the world and use them to quickly move the characters to a distant area. They are great for avoiding enemy fire. In addition to battling, you'll be scavenging raritanium for weapon upgrades and looking for the Gold Vault collectibles as well, but you can't fully complete the game on the first go. You've got additional variants on existing guns and more returning favourites which will only appear once you finish the game and unlock the challenge mode. Once again, Clank gets his own minigames, and fans of Lemmings will feel right at home here. The diminutive robot finds himself in pocket dimensions, where he must direct a never-ending stream of potential Clanks to an exit point, using orbs that imbue the Clanks with different properties, such as flight and heaviness. Another minigame introduces Glitch, a robotic spider that infiltrates computer networks and destroys viruses in frantic shoot-'em-up battles that often occur on the ceilings of the levels. Throughout the game there are also side quests which unlock as you play, hidden pocket dimensions where armour can be found, and some of the levels are just huge, with other smaller puzzles dotted across the play area. There's also a battle arena hosted by the rather psychotic Zircon Jr. Through all of that, it is so far so Ratchet & Clank, and from that description you might be wondering what all the fuss is about. But the difference this time is that this game is designed from the ground up to really show off what the PlayStation 5 can do, and boy does it do that. There's huge levels that have landscapes that stretch off as far as the eye can see, and even scenes that are on screen for just a moment are richly detailed and vivid. The cutscenes are now of movie quality, and while detail does take a slight step back in gameplay, it still looks much better than animated cartoons that you'll find on television. All of the planets are populated with creatures who are going about their daily business, and they all have voice work as well. It feels almost rude to run past what must have taken hundreds of hours of work just to get to the next mission. Rift Apart pushes the SSD really hard as well. Cutscenes flow seamlessly into gameplay, there's huge detailed worlds that seem to load in the blink of an eye, and there's huge numbers of enemies filling the screen while crates smash, bolts fly and sprinklers sprinkle. The prologue in particular is an eye-popping opener as Ratchet warps through 4 or 5 different worlds in quick succession, and it feels almost seamless as it does so. Okay, so the game is hiding the few moments of loading very cleverly. Another example would be the transitionary cutscenes when you switch between planets, but it is still very impressive. Elsewhere, the DualSense is put to full use with haptic feedback letting you feel things like the thump of a nightclub as you walk up to it, while the adaptive triggers are now used to select the power of the weapons as you're blasting away. If necessary, that can be adjusted through a plethora of accessibility options. There's also helpers for traversal, contrast options for all game elements, and plenty more besides. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is a technical marvel, but sadly it is missing one element from previous games: the humour. This is a franchise that is a game called Up Your Arsenal and has always had plenty of tongue-in-cheek chuckles. Even though the last game was somewhat sanitised through hooking into the animated movie that was very clearly aimed at children, Captain Quark was still on hand to provide plenty of laughs. Sadly, apart from one very brief appearance at the beginning of the game, Quark doesn't appear. His voice actor, Jim Ward, is very ill at the moment, and we wish him all the best. And his absence adds up to a feeling that this is a rather dry, earnest story, with moments where the game practically stamps a message of tolerance and forgiveness across the screen in giant neon letters. At one point, Clank saves everyone from imminent death by persuading an enemy that, hey, it's okay to be different. That's obviously a very good message to have, and it's clearly aimed at younger players, but the gear shifts to get to these moments are rather abrupt and don't really fit particularly well with the silly, explosive action that precedes them. It had me wishing that simply getting the bad guy was enough of a plot rather than an on-the-nose moral message. That said, there is still some humour, as Nefarious's goons have some great one-liners. It's just a shame that they are often drowned out by gunfire. What is very welcome in this game, though, is the addition of characters like Mrs. Zircon, Rivet, Glitch, and other female characters. Previous games in this franchise have been a total sausage fest, and it's quite surprising that it's taken nearly 20 years for ladies to be front and centre in Ratchet & Clank. At long last, they are there, and they are kicking butt just as hard as their male counterparts. All in all though, Ratchet & Clank is the PlayStation 5 showcase that you have been waiting for. There's instantaneous travel to worlds thanks to the SSD, there's thumping 3D audio, ray tracing through the gorgeous levels, and clever use of the DualSense that brings the many locations to life. Pairing this with classic Ratchet & Clank gameplay, this game is a riotous feast of explosions, platforming, and fast-paced action. And that's our review. Thanks as ever for tuning in and watching, and we hope that you have found this informative. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is out exclusively on PlayStation 5, no cross-gen shenanigans here, this week on the 11th of June. Before you go, make sure to do the usual YouTube things of liking, subscribing, clicking the bell icons, and you could also consider heading over to thesixaxis.com where we've got plenty more gaming news, and we are just about to head into all of the E3 shenanigans this week. So hopefully we will see you again soon. Goodbye!